Welcome everybody to motorcycle.com COVID-19 edition. I'm gonna yank this off because Sean is standing way more than 6 feet away from me. Look what we have here. The KTM 890 Duke R in the flesh. What an amazing motorcycle. I'm gonna get this out of the way now. If you own a 790 Duke, like my boss Evans, who's standing off camera right over there, you should be really pissed off right now because this is a really good motorcycle. Here's what we're gonna do for this video. This is a very short, quick and dirty ride review, first impression of the KTM 890 Duke, because I first threw a leg over this bike this morning and we got to give this bike back, pretty much after we're done shooting this video. So definitely did not get a chance to go deep and dirty in this bike, but this thing is meant for roads like you see behind me, and holy crap, is it a fun and exciting motorcycle. First and foremost, there's the bigger engine, right? The 890 parallel twin, torque at the bottom, power up top. It just takes everything the 790 was and just bumps it up a degree or two, and it sounds like a small change, but when you're sitting in the saddle, it's a big change because all those things just come together really well. So the overall changes, obviously we start with the bigger 890 parallel twin. You got better suspension, adjustable WP Apex suspension, different ergonomics, a little bit lower tapered bar, a flatter seat that puts you a little bit more forward. You got Brembo's Stylema calipers, Brembo master cylinder, high-end components where maybe the 790 had a little bit lower spec stuff. It's all these little incremental changes that come with an R model KTM that elevate this bike over the 790. And I'll say it again, that engine, the 890, what a masterpiece. So let's get to the nitty-gritty of what the 890 Duke R is like to ride. In short, it's incredibly fun. There's definitely a lot of power for the experienced rider to have a ton of fun on, but it's not like crazy amounts of power like the 1290 Super Duke would be. KTM rates this engine at about 120-ish horsepower, and this is like the Goldilocks spot for power. It's just everywhere, and it's not overwhelming. It's definitely enough when you crack on the throttle. I did a little bit of time going through the different riding modes. There's street, there's sport, and there's track, and there's rain, but clearly didn't bother with the rain mode today. Didn't even bother with the street mode either, just did sport and track. So that difference between sport and track is pretty noticeable, but it's not a big change. It's more of a incremental, minute feel when you crack on the throttle, when you're doing different things. And then there's, of course, the lower TC settings you can just adjust with the push of a button. The Supermoto ABS mode lets you, slide the rear end around. And then the track mode lets you adjust the throttle mapping independent of all the other modes, whereas the other modes, sport, street, rain, don't let you do that. So if you like ultimate control over what the bike is doing, keep it in track, and you can tailor it to your needs. So in track mode, you can alter the throttle mapping to the different mappings that you would get in either sport, street, or rain, as well as adjusting TC or launch control or wheelie control, whatever. And so for my personal taste, I like putting it in track mode and adjusting everything else to where I wanted it to be, which ended up being just keeping it in track mode and ripping. And boy, does this thing rip. When I've ridden the 1290 Super Duke, it's always just hanging on for dear life. When you're riding the 890 Duke R, it's like, okay, let's get down, let's boogie. The power this thing makes is just perfect for the kind of riding I like to do for these kinds of roads you see behind me. What makes that even more special is the fact this chassis is pretty much unchanged from the 790, but these WP Apex suspension components is just a notch above what you get with the 790. You get adjustment first and foremost. I found I really didn't need to change a whole lot. Actually, I changed nothing at all. This thing handled great right out of the box. Holds a line, stays steady and true. It's fantastic. Moving back to the throttle mapping just a quick second, because I thought of this just now, that progression when you're cracking on the throttle, there's no hiccup. It's like it just dials in so smooth and so linear. A lot of bikes, even in like the most aggressive track mode, you get on it and there's a slight hiccup. So as part of the refinement package KTM put into the 890 Duke, there's this 6-axis IMU compared to the 5-axis from the 790 before. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, and in reality it's not, but having it there is definitely, if nothing else, peace of mind to know you can push a little bit harder and have just that little bit extra margin in your safety net. But this thing handles really well. I wouldn't even say for what it is, it just handles really well for anything out there on the market. Going one step further, a bike that handles well and goes well has to stop well too, right? 320 millimeter discs on the 890 Duke compared to the 300 on the 790. Brembo Stylema calipers, braided brake lines, Brembo 1921 MCS adjustable master cylinder. This combination for a stock motorcycle. I've ridden performance bikes, race bikes, you know, with aftermarket parts that are better than this, but for a stock bike, for a stock brake system, this thing, you can put yourself on its nose so easily, and it stops with great power, great feel. It's just so linear and it's just so good. Do you see a trend here? Do you see what I'm putting down here? This is a good motorcycle, y'all. I freaking love this thing, and Evans is standing right outside of camera view, jealous that I'm spouting off about this bike because it's so good. And the price, $11,699. I would argue that bang for the buck, fun-wise, it's gonna be hard to beat the KTM here. Even that truck is the same KTM orange. So another nod towards the 890's performance features. You look at these Michelin Power Cup tires, like the sidewalls are pretty much slicks. It tells you right away, like this thing is meant to boogie and go quickly in the canyons, go quickly at the racetrack, just like that Porsche is. Everything about this bike screams performance and carving corners. It's probably why they call it the Super Scalpel. Now, that's not to say there's things I don't like about this bike. The pegs are kind of slippery. That's a small thing to notice. The seat is kind of flat and it's pretty slippery. So I'm sliding around a lot when I'm really trying to hold myself into place, especially in tight corners like this. Maybe my biggest gripe, just in my day of riding it so far, is the transmission. The first to second shift with the auto shifter, it's really notchy. It might just be an issue with this particular bike, I don't know. But that 1 to 2 shift is pretty notchy and kind of hard to do. I've tried it in many different rev ranges and it was still the same. The shift from 2 to 3 is a little bit better, but not by a whole lot. But after that, I'm coming up a little bit short on trying to find things I don't like about the KTM 890 Duke R. It's a good motorcycle. What do I say? It is phenomenal. KTM knocked it out of the park. Inevitably, someone in the comments is going to say, well, what's it like to own and maintain and buy parts for, and how reliable is it? I haven't the slightest idea because I've only got this bike for an afternoon, so that'll have to wait until we're able to ride this bike a whole lot more. So that's the quick and dirty with the KTM 890 Duke R. It's a hell of a motorcycle for a hell of a price. Remember, I just threw a leg over this thing for the first time this morning, and it's going to go back, like I said, after this video is shot. So it's clearly just a quick blast, a first ride, just quick initial thoughts. Head on over to motorcycle.com to get more of my thoughts about this bike. I can't wait to put more miles on this thing, either on the street like this, maybe even the freeway, and definitely on a racetrack. I'm sure it'll be a ripper. So that's it from this windy, twisty road on this excellent KTM 890 Duke. And that sound means it's time to go. See ya.